She sat on her cot, the only piece of furniture in the brig, behind a blue force field. She still wore her tight skirt suit, but her hair had been mussed and her face had been cut in the attack on her ship. Her hands were dirty and her eyes were red, but she didn't look like she'd admitted defeat. Not quite yet. "What do you want?" she asked neither of us in particular. "Where's the tech?" my father asked. She almost smiled at that. "What tech is that?" "I know what you and your friends were looking for on that planet," my father said, "and I have a pretty good idea they found it. Or found part of it." "You know I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to, and your Confederation friends aren't as good at getting information out of prisoners. Do you think I'm going to experience anything like what you did?" My father's face darkened. "You deserve it. You deserve worse." She shrugged. "Oh, well." My father tried several more times to get her to talk, but she wasn't going to say anything, and he left in frustration. But I stayed. "How long have you been working for the Fads?" I asked. She smiled. "Years. They helped me rise to my position in the State Department. They wanted me on the station, but when you went rogue and threatened the security of the Empire, they decided it was more important that I stop you. There are other well-placed agents throughout the Confederation, and on Earth for that matter. While idiots like Dr. Roop are trying to influence TV shows, the Fads were exerting real influence. You can't change how things are going to turn out, Zeke." "I think these captured ships will make a difference," I said. "We'll see," she said smugly. "Why would you do it?" I asked. "Why would you betray your home world?" "I'm not betraying anything," she said. "I'm trying to put Earth in the best possible position to succeed in the bigger galaxy. You're just too brainwashed by Confederation propaganda to see that." "Are you honestly saying you think the Fadic Empire is good for Earth?" "Do you think the Confederation is? Zeke, you and I have had some rough history, but I respect you, and I know you're not as clueless as people think." "Thanks, I guessed." "I'm sure you've done some digging around. You've at least looked at a map. You know what these worlds are. They're all border planets. The Confederation is recruiting expendable soldiers for their losing war." "Then why do the Fads want us?" "To fight," she admitted. "But humans would have the same chance as any non-Fad to rise within the Empire. They don't want to bring in species as second-class citizens so their privileged, non-violent members can continue to stick their heads in the sand." "I'd rather be on the side that doesn't go around conquering planets," I said. "And I know we can prove our value to the Confederation. I think maybe we just did." "Don't be too sure about that," she said. "You may not get the reception that you imagine." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. "You think the Confederation is like the United States, but with much more diversity. It's not. Where we come from, when you go out and risk everything for your country and come back a hero, you expect the people, the government you serve, to honor your courage and sacrifice. You may not like how you're going to be treated when you return to the station." I saw my father waiting in the hall, looking worried. His protruding brow was wrinkled. "What were they looking for on that planet?" I asked. "Software," he said. "A former military application that added an additional skill tree, one that would allow soldiers to develop some pretty incredible powers. Telekinesis, mind control, supernormal strength." "Wow," I said. "That would be pretty cool." "Unless someone evil is using them against you and your world." "Yeah," I agreed. "Then it would become fairly uncool." "Extremely uncool," my green father said. "If they found a way to unlock that skill tree, we may be in serious trouble." "And they found it?" I asked. I wasn't sure, which is why I wanted to talk to Mrs. Price. I'm pretty sure they have it, but I'm also pretty sure they didn't know that someone managed to escape with the biocodes. Who? I asked. He grinned. Me. I was able to make a copy before they removed the main artifact containing the software off-world. About 2 months ago. That's one of the reasons you were able to take the prison so easily. The thing they were most interested in protecting was off-world by the time you showed up. And they never caught you with it? I asked. There was nothing to catch. I uploaded it to my HUD. You mean you can... I trailed off. No, I haven't activated it. We don't know what it can do yet. But at least I can get it back to the Confederation, and they'll be able to analyze the data and match anything the Fads can throw at them. One more reason for the Confederation to be grateful to my father, I thought. At least, I hoped they would be grateful. I hadn't liked what Mrs. Price had been implying. What about the rest of what she was saying? She told me the Confederation isn't what I think it is. I don't know, he said. You were able to find me because there are some good beings like Dr. Roop out there, but they had to act in secret because there are some less good beings as well. The bottom line is, I don't know what to expect when we return. As we docked at the station, all I could think was that it would be like for a Confederation... what it would be like for a Confederation citizen to look out one of the view screens and see a Fadic cruiser towing another Fadic cruiser. The news outputs would be covering nothing else by now. Zeke Reynolds the war criminal would become Zeke Reynolds the hero, the guy who helped save the Confederation. There would be a ceremony like at the end of the Star Wars, and we'd get medals like Han and Luke. But there wouldn't be a Chewbacca sitting on the sidelines. The biggest story, I had no doubt, would be the capture of 2 Fadic ships. But there were other stories too. Jean Jones of the Selection Committee was really the father of the supposed war criminal. The human chaperone was a Fadic spy. The crew of the Dependable was still alive, and its destruction in battle had been merely Fadic trickery. We took a shuttle to the docking bay, where we walked out into the commons. A large open spaceport, sort of like an airport terminal. Honestly, I expected to hear cheering. Here we were, the beings who'd managed to turn everything around for the Confederation. When we stopped in the common area, however, I knew at once that something was wrong. The space had been cleared of civilians. There were peace officers everywhere with pistols out, pointed at us. Facing us were Chief Justice Junip and the rest of the Xeno Affairs Judicial Council. Other governmental officials, some of whom I recognized from the compound, were gathered around. This was no hero's welcome. I felt Tamrat take hold of my hand, and I pulled her towards me, as if someone were about to separate us. I was not about to let that happen.
Captain Quassel, you and your crew are most welcome in your return.
Chief Justice Junip strode toward us, his stupid cape billowing behind him.
Unfortunately, I'm afraid everyone else involved in this reckless adventure is in serious trouble.
A hush fell upon the space. There were perhaps 20 officers, and almost as many government officials facing us. By my side was my father, and next to him Captain Quassel. Behind us stood Steve and the other humans, then the refugees from the Dependable, and the members of the Selection Committee. We all remained still, and no one said a word. I think, on our side, we were too stunned. Finally, Captain Quassel stepped forward.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Chief Justice, she said. These beings are heroes of the Confederation.
These children stole a ship,
Junip responded,
which, as I don't see it, I presume is lost or destroyed. They created an intercultural incident worsening the already violent situation. We're going to have to return the cruiser and pay for the damages. And that being, he said, pointing at my father, is guilty of impersonating a Confederation citizen and corrupting the process by which worlds and delegates are selected.
This is a load of rubbish, Steve said, striding forward. You're worrying about the little details. You shall get... We just risked our lives to bring you the answer to all your problems, and you want to send it back? Are you daft?
I tapped Steve with my free hand, doing my best to wordlessly convey the idea that Captain Croissant might be the better person to state our case. The captain spread her hands wide, trying to look reasonable.
The Ishi may be a bit excitable, but he is essentially correct,
she told Junip.
You're bloody well right I'm correct, Steve said. I've never been more correct in my life.
I glared at him, and he just shrugged.
Chief Justice, the captain continued, please consider what has been accomplished here. We have 2 Faddic cruisers, one of which is entirely undamaged. This is the war prize we've always dreamt of. These children, as you call them, not only rescued me and my crew, but they obtained these ships, which will teach us everything we need to know about Faddic weaponry. I don't understand why you're taking such a hard line here.
The law is the law, the Chief Justice said. My head pounded with outrage. After all we'd done, after all we'd risked to save the Confederation, this absurd goat turtle was willing to throw away the chance to make everyone safe. I was starting to think that maybe my old principal had been right about me. Maybe I was a troublemaker. I'd certainly made a lot of trouble since leaving Earth. I wasn't proud of all of it, but I was plenty proud of those 2 Faddic ships and what they represented. This was not the time to quietly accept the decision of someone in authority. This was time to speak up and act. Even if you wanted to arrest us for intergalactic jaywalking or whatever, I said, you cannot return those ships. You'd have to be insane.
And when the Faddic Armada shows up at the station demanding their ships back, how insane will I look then?
It'll still be a bloody goat turtle, Steve said under his breath. So fairly insane, yeah?
Then you get your ships to defend the station, I said. If eliminating the Faddic threat isn't worth fighting for, I don't know what it is.
Perhaps you don't care about how many lives are lost in battle, Junip said. But I will not allow a crisis to escalate when I know it will result in the deaths of hundreds, maybe even thousands of beings.
How many have died already?
Captain Quassel asked.
How many will die in the future? How many formerly free worlds are now under Faddic dominion? Those captured ships represent an end to the violence, not an escalation.
That is your own short-sightedness, Junip said. I choose to preserve life where I can.
He waved at the peace officers.
Take them to detention.
Captain Quassel stepped out in front of us, as if to shield us from arrest.
Chief Justice, she cried, do you really think the public would be happy with this treatment? Do you think the public wants you to surrender the greatest tactical advantage we've had in centuries?
I've already managed a station-wide closure of viewing screens and quarantined the dock zone, Junip said. The entire incident has been classified. No one knows about the Faddic ships, and they aren't going to find out.
I held up my data bracelet, feeling myself smile with grim triumph. Except they do now. I've already sent details of our rescue mission to my data collector contact, and I've been recording this whole exchange. The fact that we secured those ships, and that you plan to send them back, is already public knowledge. Junip turned towards me.
How dare you,
he snapped, jabbing a hairy finger at me.
You insolent child, do you know what you've done?
Not let you get away with being a coward, I said. Not letting you undo everything we've just risked our lives to accomplish. If you want to return those ships, you're a total weenie, and it's my duty to stop you. He appeared puzzled. I suppose he must have gotten some brackets from the weenie comment.
Sir, Captain Quassel said, I think the citizenry will have some very serious questions about why these beings are being treated as criminals, and why the Judicial Council would give up the chance to understand Faddic weaponry.
At the far end of the chamber, I saw a series of data collectors led by Halou in a lemon-yellow jumpsuit, trying to force their way past the security blockade and into the terminal. peace officers were keeping them back, but the data collectors were holding up recording devices, taking in as much as they could from a distance.
We may be creating a scandal at this point,
The clownish Darth Maul told the Chief Justice. Junip nodded and spoke into his data bracelet. The peace officers parted, and Halu, along with all her data collector cronies, came into the room. Following them, Dr. Roop strode in, crossed the space to stand near us. The Chief Justice's goatee face was twisted with anger, but he managed to pull himself together and turn towards the data collectors.
Perhaps I was hasty in my initial outburst, but we must not act outside the law. Mr. Jones is under arrest, and these children are in violation of their agreements as well. They are all to be detained at once.
I looked at the peace officers, and I looked at Tamret. She looked back at me, and I knew what she was thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. They really couldn't stop us if we ran. Why shouldn't we run? Everything I wanted and cared for and hoped for was being sucked into a vortex. In the blink of an eye, all we'd accomplished had vanished. My father was going back to prison. The delegation was on the verge of being kicked out. The cure for my mother was gone. And they were going to separate me from Tamret. Going along with their wishes would get me nothing. If I were free, however, I would be able to fix things. I'd rescued my father before. I could do it again. Maybe I could figure out how to get the cure for my mom. I could steal a ship and bring it to her. If I had to choose between being a prisoner or a space pirate, it was an easy decision. Tamret and I were strong and fast and agile. If we made a break for it, they'd never be able to stop us. We could hide on the station until we could get a ship, and then we could figure out where to go. It wouldn't matter, because we'd be together, and we can do anything. The plan, if it could be called that, was completely insane, but I'd done crazier things already, and it beat letting them lock us up. No one, I decided, was going to put Tamret behind bars. "Are you ready?" I asked her, my voice low, but I knew with her former enhancement she'd be able to hear me. "I'm ready," she said. I glanced up at Tamret. I felt my entire body tense. My heart, which had been pounding with excitement, now fluttered with misery. Her face was covered with yellow dots, laser sights. I glanced up and saw peace officers leveling PPB blasters and rifles at us. If we moved, we would be shot. It was all the hesitation they needed. I felt my arms jerk behind me and secured. Peace officers grabbed Tamret's arms and roughly secured her too. There was not going to be any escape.